The massive space station buzzed with activity as thousands of beings from different worlds gathered for the most important shooting competition in the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb stood in lane 47, preparing his plasma rifle with steady hands. He had trained 6 months for this moment, and his whole body hummed with nervous energy. The Galactic Shooting Championship only happened once every 4 years, and this was humanity's best chance to prove they belonged among the elite marksmen of 73 star systems. The arena stretched for miles with holographic displays showing scores and target information in languages Marcus couldn't read. Alien spectators filled the observation. Decks, in their strange sounds of excitement, created a noise that made his ears ring. Marcus checked his equipment one more time and then noticed someone in the lane next to his. A human woman stood there looking completely out of place among all the warriors and professional shooters. She wore plain civilian clothes with a worn jacket and comfortable pants that had seen better days. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she examined the rifle in her hands like she was checking a farm tool. Everyone else wore tactical gear covered in sponsors and military patches, but this woman looked like she had just walked in from a country road. Marcus walked over to her with a polite smile. "Excuse me, ma'am, but this area is for championship competitors only. You'll need to move to the observation deck." The woman looked up at him with calm hazel eyes that showed no concern. "I'm in lane 48. Helen Carter from the civilian division." Marcus blinked twice and checked his competition roster on his wrist display. There is no civilian division in the Galactic Championship. "Apparently there is now," Helen said and turned back to her rifle. "Someone from Earth requested a special category and they put my name in. I'm just here to shoot and then go home." Before Marcus could ask more questions, a loud voice boomed across the entire arena. The Rangemaster was a 4-armed alien named Krell 7, whose scales shimmered like oil on water. His clicking sounds were translated into standard galactic common by the arena's computer system. "All competitors to your marks. Standard qualification begins now. 10 shots at 1,000 meters with moving targets. You must score at least 85 points to advance to the next round." Marcus forced himself to focus on his own preparation. He couldn't afford distractions when humanity's reputation was on the line. The Terran Defense Force had sent their 12 best shooters, and everyone back on Earth was watching through live feeds. This competition would show the galaxy whether humans could truly compete with species that had been traveling through space for thousands of years. Some of these aliens had special eyes that could see ultraviolet light or infrared heat. Others had forearms that could hold a rifle without any wobble. Humans had nothing but practice and determination. The first target appeared downrange as a glowing holographic disc that moved side to side at different speeds. Marcus took a deep breath and aimed carefully through his electronic scope. The targeting computer gave him wind speed and distance calculations. He squeezed the trigger slowly and the plasma bolt shot forward with a bright flash. The target registered his hit just outside the center ring. Acceptable, but not perfect. He needed to do better. From the corner of his eye, Marcus saw Helen raise her rifle with an easy motion that looked almost lazy. She fired without the careful preparation he had been taught in the military. Her target made a sound that meant perfect center hit. Marcus told himself it was probably just luck. Anyone could get lucky on one shot. He focused on his remaining shots and worked through his training. Breathe in and hold it. Calculate the target's movement pattern. Lead the shot slightly to account for travel time. Squeeze the trigger gently. 9 more shots with varying results. Some were good and some were just okay. By the end, Marcus had scored 87 points. He felt relief wash over him because that meant he advanced to the next round. He had beaten shooters from 3 different alien empires, including a Draken, warrior whose species had eyes better than any targeting computer humans had ever built. Then the main scoreboard lit up with final results, and Marcus stared in disbelief. Helen Carter had scored 100 points, a perfect score with every single shot hitting the exact center of the target. The entire arena went silent for 3 seconds before excited chatter exploded from every direction. A perfect qualification round was extremely rare and happened maybe once every 5 championships, and this unknown human woman had done it while looking like she was bored. Marcus walked over to Helen, who was already putting down her rifle like the competition was over. "Who are you exactly?" Helen shrugged without any pride in her voice. "Just a woman who knows how to shoot. I grew up on a farm colony called New Montana, where we have lots of predators that want to eat livestock. You learn to hit what you aim at or you don't keep your animals very long. A farm colony? Marcus couldn't hide how shocked he felt. And you just decided to enter the most important shooting competition in the galaxy? I didn't decide anything, Helen said with a slight smile. Some government worker ran a computer search through colonial records looking for people with good shooting scores. My name came up because I file reports every time I have to deal with dangerous wildlife. They said humanity needed representation in the civilian category, and it would be good for relations with alien species. I just wanted to finish my harvest season, but they didn't give me much choice. The range master's voice boomed out again. Competitors who qualified will advance to round 1. Competition begins in 1 standard hour. Next challenge is long-range precision with targets at 5,000 meters. Helen picked up her rifle and walked toward the preparation area without looking back. Marcus stood there watching her go while alien competitors whispered to each other in dozens of languages. Their translators created a muddle of confused speculation. Around him, other human shooters were celebrating their advancement. But Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the strange farm woman who had just outshot everyone. Something told him this competition had just become much more interesting, and possibly much more complicated than anyone had expected. The preparation chamber filled with nervous energy as 200 competitors who had passed qualification checked their weapons and reviewed target data. Marcus found himself staring at Helen Carter instead of focusing on his own equipment. She sat alone on a metal bench cleaning her rifle with careful movements that showed years of practice. Captain Patricia Monroe walked up beside Marcus and followed his gaze to the civilian shooter. You've been watching her for 10 minutes. Either go talk to her properly or get your head back in the game. Marcus shook his head slowly. She shot perfect in qualification. A farm woman with no formal training. Patricia raised her eyebrows in surprise. That woman scored 100? I thought she was special forces operating under a fake identity. She says she's just a farmer who shoots predators that threaten her livestock. Well, Patricia said while thinking carefully, the outer colonies aren't easy places to live. Some of those farming worlds have wildlife that makes Earth's dangerous animals look like pets. Maybe we shouldn't be so surprised that someone who survives out there can shoot. Well, a group of alien competitors gathered around a public information screen near the entrance, and their voices got loud enough to draw attention. Marcus and Patricia walked over to see what caused the commotion. The screen displayed Helen's background file, which was public record according to championship rules. What they saw made Marcus's mouth fall open. Helen Marie Carter was 34 years old and lived on New Montana Colony, where she worked as a livestock farmer and wildlife control specialist. She had no military service and no competitive shooting experience. The Terran Colonial Administration had requested her entry as a civilian representative. But the attached notes told a much bigger story. Helen had filed 17 formal complaints with Colonial Administration over the past 10 years. Every complaint asked for better fencing and automated defense systems. In each complaint, she had documented her own wildlife control activities. The numbers were incredible. Over 3,000 confirmed kills of hostile animals. The categories included razorback stalkers, which were fast pack hunters, sky hunters, which were flying predators with 6-meter wingspans, tunnel sharks that burrowed underground, and even a juvenile titan bear, which was one of the most dangerous creatures in known space. All kills were confirmed through colonial wildlife tracking systems. Her average shooting range was 1,000 to 3,000 meters. Her accuracy rate was 97%. She's been in more life-and-death situations than most soldiers, Patricia whispered, just against animals instead of enemy combatants. A tall, crystalline alien approached Helen with movements that made light reflect off his body in strange patterns. His name tag identified him as Quartz 7, who was the current champion of the Vax Collective. He had won the last 4 galactic championships and was considered the best shooter in known space. His translated voice carried a tone that sounded dismissive. Your record is impressive for someone from a primitive species, but competition shooting requires precision beyond simple survival skills. Do you truly believe you can compete at this level? Helen looked up from her rifle without changing her calm expression. I hit what I aim at. Don't see how that changes just because there's an audience watching. The difference is pressure, Quartz 7 continued. When thousands watch your every move, when your entire species' reputation hangs on your performance, when you face the greatest shooters in the galaxy, your simple farm skills will fail you. You will crack under the weight of expectation. Maybe, Helen said and returned to cleaning her rifle. Guess we'll find out soon enough. Quartz 7's crystalline body flickered with colors that suggested amusement. I look forward to your elimination. It will be educational for your kind to understand their limitations. After the alien champion walked away, Marcus approached Helen. You don't seem bothered by what he said. Why would I be? Helen asked without looking up. Talk doesn't change whether a shot hits or misses. I've faced down a charging Titan bear at 50 meters. Some crystal fellow trying to rattle me doesn't rank very high on my worry list. A Titan bear at 50 meters? Marcus felt genuine shock. Titan bears were apex predators that stood 4 meters tall and could shrug off plasma fire. How did you survive that? Shot it in the eye, Helen said simply. They have a weak spot where the optical nerve connects to the brain. One good shot and they go down hard. Of course, you only get one chance. Missing your lunch. Patricia had joined them in time to hear the explanation. Mrs. Carter, with your skills, why aren't you in the military? The Terran Defense Force could use someone with your abilities. Helen's expression softened a bit. Miss Carter, actually. And I'm not a soldier. I'm a farmer. I shoot because I have to protect my property and my animals. That's different from shooting at people. But you could help humanity standing in the galaxy, Marcus pressed. We're still new to the interstellar community and still proving ourselves. People like you could make a real difference. Helen set down her cleaning cloth and met Marcus's eyes directly. I respect what you do, truly, but I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be pulled from my farm and put on display. Some administrator decided I should be here and they made it clear I didn't have much choice. But once this is done, I'm going back to New Montana and back to my cattle and crops. That's where I belong. Before Marcus could respond, the range master announced that round 1 would start in 5 minutes. All competitors filed out toward the main arena. Marcus noticed that many alien shooters were now watching Helen with new interest. They weren't dismissive anymore. Her background file had changed how they saw her. She wasn't just a lucky amateur. She was a veteran of thousands of dangerous encounters. The arena's display showed round 1 specifications: 5,000 meters with moving targets and simulated weather conditions including wind, rain, and heat distortion. Marcus took his position at the firing line and felt the weight of billions watching from Earth. This was more than a shooting competition. This was humanity's chance to prove they belonged among the stars. The first target appeared in the distance as barely more than a dot, even with magnification. Marcus adjusted for wind and elevation, then took a careful breath and fired. His shot landed 2 rings from center. Acceptable, but not impressive. He heard the shot from Helen's lane, followed immediately by a perfect center hit announcement. Then another shot and another perfect hit. Marcus forced himself to focus on his own targets, but in the back of his mind, one thought kept repeating. Who was Helen Carter really, and what else was humanity capable of that they had yet to discover? The first round eliminations were harsh and unforgiving. Of the 200 competitors who qualified, only 50 remained after the 5,000-meter challenge. Marcus survived with a score of 73, which was respectable but not remarkable. Patricia scored 78, which earned nods of approval from several alien competitors who recognized solid military training. Helen Carter scored 96. She had missed 4 points on her 7th shot when the weather system generated a sudden crosswind that exceeded normal parameters. Several competitors filed protests claiming equipment malfunction, but the protests were dismissed when replay showed the system had functioned within specifications at the extreme end. What shocked observers was Helen's reaction to losing 4 points. She simply shrugged and continued shooting like nothing had happened. In the observation deck reserved for competitors, Marcus watched as analysis feeds picked apart every shooter's performance. Galactic media had latched onto Helen's story and human news networks broadcast non-stop coverage. The unknown farm woman had become an overnight sensation across human space. A reptilian alien named Scales Like Night approached Marcus with predatory grace. Her species, the Draken, were born hunters, and her voice carried respect when she spoke. Your civilian Carter shoots like a hunter, not a soldier. She is a hunter, Marcus replied. Spent years protecting her farm from wildlife that would kill most trained soldiers. This explains much, Scales Like Night said through her translator. She does not shoot for glory or pride. She shoots to survive. This makes her dangerous in competition because she has no fear of failure, only focus on the target. Patricia joined them holding her tablet which showed news feeds from Earth. Helen's become famous back home. They're calling her the farmer's daughter and running background pieces on New Montana Colony. Apparently everyone in her settlement knows her as the woman who never misses. But she did miss, Marcus pointed out. 4 points in round 1. Did she? Patricia's expression turned thoughtful. I've been reviewing footage. That crosswind occurred at the exact moment she fired. The timing was too precise. If I didn't know better, I'd say the environmental system was deliberately targeting her shot. That's a serious accusation, Marcus said quietly. Are you suggesting sabotage? I'm suggesting we watch carefully. Helen's performance is making waves, and some species in the galactic community don't appreciate humans advancing so quickly. We've only been spacefaring for 60 years, and we're already competing at elite levels. That bothers certain political factions. Their conversation stopped when the Rangemaster announced round 2. Competitors will face moving targets at variable distances from 2,000 to 8,000 meters. Target size will decrease with each successful hit. This tests adaptation and precision under changing conditions. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Variable distance shooting required constant recalibration and split-second decisions. He had trained for this, but training was different from actual performance under pressure. He glanced at Helen, who sat alone with her eyes closed. To anyone else, she might look like she was napping, but Marcus recognized someone running mental calculations and visualizing. Shots. Quartz 7 entered the observation deck with his crystalline body glowing confidently. He walked directly toward Helen with 2 other Vaxian competitors. The farm woman rests before her elimination. Perhaps she dreams of her simple life before she was exposed to true competition. Helen opened her eyes but didn't stand. I was calculating wind variance and distance markers. But if you need to talk to feel confident, go ahead. Confidence? Quartz 7's glow became brighter. I am the 4-time champion. I hold records in 6 categories. I have defeated the greatest shooters of every major species. I do not need confidence. I have certainty. 4-time champion is impressive, Helen acknowledged. Must be nice having all that experience plus advanced targeting systems built into your biology. I just have eyes and practice. The observation deck went completely quiet. Several alien competitors turned to watch the exchange. Challenging Quartz 7 was bold, especially for a first-time competitor. The Vaxian's glow shifted to angry red and orange colors. You dare suggest I have an unfair advantage? My abilities are natural to my species. Didn't say unfair, Helen replied calmly. Just pointing out you were born with built-in rangefinders and trajectory calculators. I had to learn the old-fashioned way through trial and error, with real consequences for every mistake. Different paths, that's all. Then perhaps we should make a wager, Quartz 7 said with menace in his translated voice. When you fail in round 2, as you inevitably will, you will publicly admit that humans have no place in elite galactic competition. Helen stood slowly and met the alien's gaze without flinching. Though she was shorter, she somehow gave the impression of looking down at him. And when I don't fail? An impossibility, Quartz 7 said. But if by some miracle you outscore me, I will personally recommend humanity for inclusion in the Galactic Marksman Guild. With full voting privileges, the observation deck erupted in whispers and surprised sounds from dozens of species. The Galactic Marksman Guild was one of the most prestigious organizations in known space, with influence spanning military, civilian, and governmental sectors. Humanity had applied for inclusion 3 times and been rejected each time for being too inexperienced and primitive. Patricia grabbed Marcus's arm hard. She shouldn't accept. Quartz 7 is setting her up. If she fails, it damages all of humanity's standing in the galaxy. But Helen was already extending her hand in the human gesture of agreement. Deal. May the best shooter win. Quartz 7 stared at the offered hand, then touched it briefly with one crystalline appendage. Indeed. May the best shooter win. As the Vaxian walked away, Marcus approached Helen quickly. Do you understand what you just agreed to? You're not just representing yourself anymore. You're representing all of humanity across every colony and Earth itself. I've always understood that, Helen said quietly. Why do you think they pulled a farmer from her colony and put her in this competition? I'm not here by accident. Someone decided that humanity needed a civilian face, someone relatable, someone who represents the everyday humans making lives on frontier worlds. Win or lose, I'm already serving that purpose. But if you lose after that public challenge, it will hurt humanity's reputation. If I lose, it'll be because I missed my shots, Helen said. Same as always. And if I win, maybe it helps humanity's standing. Either way, I'm still going back to New Montana when this is done." Her expression softened. "I appreciate your concern, truly, but I've been shooting since I was 8 years old. I've been in life or death situations more times than I can count. This," she gestured at the arena, "this is just another day making shots that matter." The call came for competitors to return to the firing line. As they walked out, Marcus noticed several alien competitors watching Helen with expressions that suggested more than competitive interest. They were watching her like predators sizing up prey. Something was happening beneath the surface of this competition, something political and dangerous. And Helen Carter, a simple farmer from New Montana, was standing right at the center of it all. Round 2 proved to be everything Marcus feared and more. Targets appeared at random distances, forcing shooters to constantly adjust their calculations. Target sizes decreased with each successful hit until they became barely visible, even through magnification scopes. The holographic environment shifted unpredictably, simulating everything from dense fog to glare-inducing bright sunlight. Marcus struggled hard. He had trained for variable conditions, but training couldn't replicate the pressure of performing with billions watching. His score wavered between acceptable and poor. By the time he completed his final shot, he knew he had barely survived. His score was 67, just above the elimination threshold. Patricia did better and earned 72 points through sheer disciplined technique. She had approached each shot with military precision and methodically worked through her training protocols. But it was the duel between Helen Carter and Quart 7 that captivated everyone in the arena. Quart 7 shot with mathematical perfection. His crystalline biology allowed him to calculate trajectories with computer-like precision. His scores were consistently in the high 80s. He moved through the round with mechanical efficiency. By his final shot, he had scored 89, which was the highest score of the entire round. Helen approached her shots differently. She took longer between shots and sometimes stood motionless for several seconds while she read the environment. No high-tech equipment and no advanced targeting systems, just eyes, instinct, and decades of experience. Her first 5 shots were perfect center hits despite variable distances and changing conditions. The arena's atmosphere shifted as spectators realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Shot 6 came at nearly 8,000 meters, which was the maximum range. The target appeared for only 3 seconds before vanishing. Helen fired without visible hesitation. Perfect center hit. The crowd erupted with sounds of excitement from dozens of different species. Even aliens that typically remained stoic showed signs of amazement. An 8,000-meter shot under those conditions was remarkable by any standard. Shot 7 through 9 continued the pattern. Helen missed the center on shot 8 by a single ring, which cost her 2 points, but she recovered immediately with perfect composure. Her final shot would determine whether she beat Quart 7's score. She needed a center hit to score 90, which would give her victory by a single point. The target appeared at 6,000 meters, which was medium difficulty. But the holographic environment generated a sandstorm effect that reduced visibility to near zero. It was a cruel twist that would challenge even the most advanced targeting systems. Helen stood at the firing line with her rifle ready. Seconds ticked by slowly. The target would disappear in 10 seconds, then 9, then 8. Marcus found himself holding his breath. The entire arena had gone completely silent. 7 seconds remained, then 6. Helen fired. The sandstorm effect cleared just in time to show the result. Perfect center hit. Final score was 90 points. The arena exploded with sound. Cheers, roars, clicks, and whistles as every species expressed excitement in their own way. Helen Carter, a civilian farmer from an outer colony world, had defeated the 4-time galactic champion. Quart 7 stood frozen at his lane with his crystalline body flickering through colors that suggested shock and disbelief. He had been beaten by a human who possessed none of the biological advantages he took for granted. As competitors filed back to the observation deck, Marcus got caught in a crush of bodies as various species tried to get closer to Helen. Media, drones swarmed everywhere and their cameras recorded every angle. Journalists from dozens of news networks shouted questions in multiple languages. Helen handled it with the same calm she had shown throughout the competition. She answered a few questions politely and confirmed that, yes, she was just a farmer. No, she had no secret training. And yes, she would very much like to get back to her colony when this was finished. When Quart 7 approached, the crowd parted to let him through. The Vaxian champion moved slowly with his glow muted and subdued, When he reached Helen, he performed a gesture that Marcus recognized from cultural briefings as a formal acknowledgement of superior performance. "You shot well. I underestimated you. This was incorrect of me." "You shot well too," Helen replied. 89 is impressive under those conditions. "But not impressive enough," Court 7 said, and his colors shifted to contemplative blue. "I made a wager and I will honor it. When this championship concludes, regardless of final outcome, I will recommend humanity for inclusion in the Galactic Marksman Guild." "I appreciate that," Helen said, "though I still maintain you have natural advantages that made your performance remarkable in its own right." Something like surprise flickered through the alien's crystalline form. "You excuse my performance despite your victory?" "Wasn't about excusing anything," Helen explained. "Just pointing out facts. Different species have different capabilities. What matters is doing your best with what you have." She paused. "That's something my father taught me. He was a farmer too on Earth before the colony ships left. He used to say that comparing yourself to others was useless. The only comparison that matters is between who you are today and who you were yesterday." The Vaxian stood silent for a long moment. Then he performed another gesture that Marcus didn't recognize. Patricia whispered quickly. "That's a Vaxian sign of deep respect." He just acknowledged her as a worthy equal. For Vaxians, that's incredibly significant. They rarely show that level of respect to other species. The Rangemaster's announcement cut through the observation deck chatter. Round 2 eliminations are complete. 20 competitors remain. Round 3 will commence following a 6-hour rest period. Competitors are advised to prepare for extreme long-range shooting. Distances will exceed 10,000 meters. The observation deck began to clear as competitors headed to their quarters. Marcus noticed several groups of alien shooters clustered together, speaking in low tones. The looks they cast toward Helen ranged from admiration to concern to something much darker. Patricia pulled Marcus aside and spoke quietly. "We need to talk. I've been monitoring communications, and there are factions within the galactic community that are not happy about Helen's performance." "What kind of factions?" Marcus asked. "The kind that believe humanity is advancing too quickly and gaining too much influence. Helen's victory over Court 7 just proved that humans can compete at elite levels, despite our relatively primitive technology. That scares certain powers who want to keep us in a subordinate position." Marcus felt cold understanding settle in his gut. "You think someone might try to interfere with the competition?" "I think we need to watch Helen carefully. She's become a symbol whether she wants to be or not, and symbols are dangerous things in galactic politics." They watched as Helen left the observation deck alone despite the crowds around her. She moved with quiet confidence, unbothered by the attention and focused on something only she could see. Marcus realized with sudden clarity that Helen Carter was exactly what humanity needed in this moment. Not a soldier seeking glory and not a politician playing games, but a simple person doing what needed to be done with quiet competence. But that simplicity made her vulnerable. She didn't understand the political forces swirling around her, and didn't recognize the danger she represented to those who wanted humanity kept weak. "We need to protect her," Marcus said firmly. Patricia nodded grimly. "Agreed. But how do you protect someone who doesn't think she needs protection?" It was a question neither of them could answer. The rest period should have been a time for recovery and preparation, but instead Marcus found himself in an emergency meeting with Patricia and 3 other human competitors who made it through round 2. They gathered in a secured room in the human delegation quarters with anti-surveillance measures activated. Lieutenant Chris Morgan, a sniper instructor from the Terran Marine Corps, pulled up holographic data on his tablet. "I've been analyzing the environmental system patterns during rounds 1 and 2. The targeting is subtle, but it's definitely there." Patricia leaned forward. "Explain what you found." Chris manipulated the holographic data showing overlays of different shooters' performances. "Watch the wind variance during Helen's shots versus other competitors. See how the crosswinds spike at precise moments during her firing sequence? It's too consistent to be random. Someone is manipulating the environmental systems to disadvantage her specifically." Marcus studied the data carefully. Chris was right, and the pattern was clear once you knew to look for it. Environmental challenges spiked by 15 to 20% during Helen's shots compared to baseline difficulty for other shooters. "Why hasn't the competition committee noticed this?" he asked. "Because it's within system parameters," Chris explained. "The environmental system is designed to create variable conditions. These spikes are at the high end of allowed variance but technically legal. Someone with access to the system is gaming it, staying just inside the rules while making Helen's shot significantly harder. Who has that kind of access? Patricia asked. A voice from the doorway made them all turn quickly. Probably someone in the Creth Union. They have the most to lose if humans gain full guild status. Helen Carter stood in the entrance with her arms crossed. Marcus wondered how long she had been listening. Patricia looked surprised. "Miss Carter, this was a private meeting." "About me," Helen pointed out. "Figured I should be included." She stepped inside and the door sealed behind her. "I'm not as oblivious as you might think. I've noticed the environmental challenges spiking during my shots and I've been compensating for it." "You knew?" Marcus couldn't hide his surprise. "Suspected," Helen corrected. "When you spend years shooting in genuine variable conditions, you develop a feel for natural patterns versus artificial ones. What we're seeing in the arena isn't natural. Someone is tipping the scales against me." Chris pulled up more data. The Creth Union has significant political influence in the Galactic Marksman Guild. They've been blocking humanity's admission for years. If Helen wins this championship or even places in the top 3, it provides proof that humans can compete at elite levels. That undermines their entire argument against our admission. "So they're cheating," Marcus said flatly. "Technically, they're exploiting system parameters," Patricia corrected, "which makes it almost impossible to prove without direct evidence of manipulation. And even if we could prove it, filing a protest would make humanity look like sore losers complaining about fair competition." Helen moved to the holographic display and studied the data with surprising analytical skill. "What's the difficulty increase going to be in round 3? "Extreme long range," Patricia said. "Over 10,000 meters. At that distance, even minor environmental factors become major challenges. If someone is manipulating the systems against you, then the effect will be much worse." "Then I'll need to compensate even more," Helen finished. "Same as always. Adjust to conditions and make the shot." "You're taking this remarkably calmly," Marcus observed. Helen shrugged. "Getting upset doesn't help accuracy. I've dealt with worse than rigged environmental systems. Try shooting a sky hunter in a thunderstorm while it's diving at you at 100 kilometers per hour. Compared to that, this is just mathematics and patience. But the political implications for humanity could be severe." "Aren't my problem," Helen interrupted. "Look, I understand what you're all worried about. Humanity's reputation, galactic standing, and all that. But I can't shoot for politics. I can only shoot for the target. The moment I start thinking about anything else, my accuracy drops and I miss." Patricia studied Helen with newfound respect. "You're right. We've been so focused on the larger implications that we forgot the fundamentals. A shooter shoots and everything else is just noise." "Exactly," Helen said. "So here's what I need from all of you. Stop trying to protect me from things I can't control and start helping me with things I can. Chris, I want your analysis of the environmental patterns. If I know what they're likely to throw at me, I can compensate better. Marcus, you have military training in long-range engagement, so help me review theoretical maximum ranges for plasma rifles. Patricia, you have political connections, so keep monitoring for anything that might affect the competition's integrity." The transformation in the room was immediate. Helen had taken control without raising her voice or pulling rank. She had simply stated what was needed, and the others responded to her quiet authority naturally. Over the next 4 hours, they worked together as a team. Chris shared his environmental analysis, highlighting patterns and likely manipulation points. Marcus ran trajectory calculations for extreme range shots, exploring the physics of plasma bolt degradation at distances exceeding 10,000 meters. Patricia maintained communication with Earth authorities, ensuring that evidence of manipulation was being documented even if it couldn't yet be acted upon. Helen absorbed all the information with the focus of someone used to learning through observation and practice. She asked pointed questions, challenged assumptions, and occasionally shared insights from her own experience that surprised the military-trained shooters. "At 5,000 meters and beyond," she explained at one point, "you're not shooting at a target anymore. You're shooting at where the target will be by the time your bolt arrives. It's less about aim and more about prediction. I learned that tracking sky hunters. They're fast enough that shooting where they are guarantees a miss. You have to shoot where they're going to be in the next 2 seconds. That's advanced fire control theory," Chris said with genuine impressed tone. "Most military snipers don't fully internalize that concept until after years of training." "Had good motivation to learn fast," Helen replied dryly. Miss a sky hunter and it's in your chicken coop eating your livestock. Miss too many times and you don't have a farm anymore because everything is dead. As the rest period drew to a close, Marcus found himself feeling more confident despite the challenges. They couldn't stop the manipulation, but they could prepare Helen for it. And despite her simple background and lack of formal training, Helen Carter had proven herself to be a remarkably quick study who adapted faster than most trained soldiers. The question was whether it would be enough against opponents who were literally built for precision shooting. The range master's announcement echoed through the station. All competitors report to the main arena. Round 3 commencing in 15 minutes. Extreme long range with targets at 10,000 to 15,000 meters. This round will determine the final 10 competitors who advance to semifinals. The group filed out of the secured room and headed toward the arena. As they walked, Patricia pulled Marcus aside and spoke quietly. I received a message from Earth Command. If Helen places in the top 3, she's being awarded the Civilian Medal of Merit and offered a position in the Defense Force Training Command. They want to build a program around her teaching methodology. She'll refuse the position, Marcus predicted confidently. Probably, Patricia agreed, but the offer exists regardless. She's become more than a competitor. She's become hope. Every human watching this sees her and thinks if she can do it, maybe we can too. That's incredibly powerful. It's also a lot of pressure to put on one person. True, but I think she can handle it. She's been handling pressure her entire life, just a different kind. They entered the arena to find it transformed. The firing line now extended back an additional 100 meters, creating greater distance from the target zones. Massive displays showed real-time target locations so far away they were barely visible even through magnification. Helen took her position at lane 48 with the same quiet confidence she had shown throughout the competition. But Marcus noticed something new in her eyes now. It was determination, not just to shoot well but to win. The farm woman who had been reluctantly dragged into this competition had become a fighter. Round 3 began with mechanical precision, as targets appeared at extreme range with some exceeding 12,000 meters. At that distance, even identifying the target was challenging, and hitting it required calculations that pushed the boundaries of what was possible with standard plasma weaponry. Marcus watched from the competitor observation area as shooters began their attempts. Many failed to hit anything at all because the distances were simply too extreme for all but the most skilled marksmen. By the halfway point, only 8 competitors had scored above 50% accuracy. Quartz 7 was one of them, and his biological targeting systems gave him an edge at extreme range. He scored 73, which was respectable given the difficulty. The crowd applauded his performance, though with less enthusiasm than in previous rounds. He was no longer the unbeatable champion because Helen had changed that narrative completely. Helen approached the firing line and the arena's noise level dropped to near silence. Everyone wanted to see if the farm woman could maintain her performance at distances that challenged the best shooters in the galaxy. Marcus pulled up the environmental monitoring data on his tablet because Chris had sent him real-time feeds, encrypted to avoid detection. As Helen took her position, he watched the environmental parameters closely. They immediately began spiking upward. Wind variance increased by 18%. Atmospheric density fluctuations rose by 22%. Even the target appearance timing shifted, creating less predictable patterns than other shooters faced. They're not even being subtle anymore, Patricia muttered while watching over Marcus's shoulder. Helen fired her first shot and the plasma bolt traveled the immense distance, fighting environmental factors the entire way. It struck 3 rings from center, which was a miss but not a complete failure at that range. She adjusted her aim and fired again. 2 rings from center, so she was getting closer. Third shot landed 1 ring from center. Fourth shot hit dead center. The crowd cheered because Helen had taken 4 shots to calibrate to the extreme conditions. But once calibrated, she had achieved perfection. Shots 5 through 7 were all center hits. Helen had found her rhythm and was compensating for the manipulated environmental factors through sheer skill and experience, gained from years of survival shooting. Then the environmental system escalated dramatically. Shot 8 came with a sudden simulated windstorm that exceeded anything seen in the competition so far. The wind variance jumped by 40% in an instant, which was far beyond what should have been possible within system parameters. Helen fired anyway, but her bolt went wide and missed the target entirely. A gasp rippled through the crowd. It was the first complete miss of her entire competition. Marcus checked the environmental data and his jaw clenched tight. That windstorm was impossible. It exceeded system specifications by 15%. Someone just broke the rules. Can we prove it? Patricia asked urgently. Maybe, but not in time to matter for this round. On the firing line, Helen had paused. For the first time in the competition, she showed visible frustration. She examined her rifle, checked her equipment, then looked up at the environmental displays. Marcus saw her eyes narrow because she had recognized the manipulation for what it was. Shot 9 was coming and Helen took her position. Marcus watched the environmental data with growing anger as the system spiked again, preparing another impossible challenge. But Helen did something unexpected. Instead of firing immediately when the target appeared, she waited. The target was visible for 10 seconds. She let 5 seconds pass just watching and reading the environment. Then at the 6-second mark, she fired. The plasma bolt arced through space and the environmental manipulation kicked in at the 7-second mark. But Helen had anticipated it. Her bolt was already past the affected zone. Center hit. The crowd erupted in genuine amazement. She had beaten the manipulation by timing her shot to avoid it entirely. Marcus found himself grinning. She's playing chess with whoever is controlling the system. The final shot was number 10. Helen's score stood at 76. A center hit would bring her to 80, which was enough to likely secure a top 3 position and guarantee advancement to the next round. The target appeared at 15,000 meters, which was the maximum range possible in the arena. It was barely a dot even with maximum magnification available. Environmental manipulation began immediately, with everything thrown at her simultaneously. Wind, atmospheric density changes, and even simulated gravity fluctuations. Every possible factor was being used against her at once. Helen stood motionless, reading the environment carefully. 5 seconds passed. 6 seconds. 7 seconds passed slowly. At 8 seconds, she fired. The plasma bolt's journey took nearly 2 seconds at that extreme range. Everyone in the arena watched the trajectory displays tracking the bolt's path through layer after layer of environmental challenges. It should have been impossible. The calculations required were beyond what a human could perform mentally in real time. But Helen Carter wasn't calculating like a computer. She was predicting using instincts honed through years of survival shooting. She was treating the extreme range target the same way she had treated sky hunters and titan bears back home. Not as a mathematical problem, but as a living challenge that required intuitive response based on experience. The bolt struck its target. Center hit. The arena exploded with sound from every species present. Helen had scored 80 points, tying the second highest score of the round, and securing her place in the final 10 competitors. But more importantly, she had done it despite blatant manipulation of the environmental systems. As competitors filed back to the observation area, Marcus noticed something concerning. Several alien shooters were clustered together, speaking in agitated tones. Their attention kept returning to Helen, and their expressions were openly hostile now. The rangemaster made an announcement that surprised everyone. Due to technical irregularities detected in the environmental control systems, competition officials will conduct a review before Round 4 commences. All competitors are to return to their quarters. Competition will resume following an official statement. The observation area erupted in speculation. Technical irregularities meant the officials had finally noticed the manipulation. Patricia grabbed Marcus's arm hard. We need to stay close to Helen. If they've admitted system problems, then someone is going to be desperate to suppress evidence and cover their tracks. They found Helen in the corridor outside the arena, surrounded by media drones and journalists asking rapid-fire questions. She was answering questions with her usual calm, but Marcus could see tension in her shoulders. Ms. Carter, do you believe the environmental systems were manipulated against you? A journalist asked loudly. I think the systems created some unusual challenges, Helen replied diplomatically. But that's part of competition. You deal with what you're given and adapt. But if it was deliberate manipulation, then surely you deserve compensation. If it was deliberate, Helen interrupted, then the officials will handle it properly. I'm just here to shoot, Marcus and Patricia pushed through the crowd, creating a protective formation around Helen. We need to get you somewhere secure, Marcus said quietly but firmly. Helen started to protest, then noticed his expression. You think I'm in actual danger? I think someone just got caught cheating on a galactic stage and they're going to be looking for ways to minimize the damage. You're the person who exposed them, whether intentionally or not. That makes you a target. They made their way back to the human delegation quarters with security protocols activated at maximum level. Once inside, Patricia immediately began reviewing communications traffic on her secured tablet. The Kreth Union has requested an emergency session with the championship committee. They're claiming the system irregularities affected all competitors equally and should result in round 3 being invalidated completely. Invalidated? Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. That would erase Helen's performance entirely. Exactly their goal. If they can invalidate the round, they can argue for a restart with properly functioning systems. Systems they'll ensure are manipulated more carefully next time. Helen sat down heavily and exhaustion finally showed on her face. So what happens now? Before anyone could answer, the Rangemaster's voice echoed through the station's communication system with an official announcement. After review by competition officials and consultation with the Galactic Marksman Guild Council, the following determination has been made. Environmental control system parameters exceeded specifications during round 3 by a margin of 14.7%. This constitutes a technical violation of competition standards. However, as the irregularities affected all competitors equally, and as no evidence exists of deliberate manipulation, round 3 results will stand. The final 10 competitors will advance to round 4 as determined by their scores. Competition will resume following a 12-hour rest and full system recalibration. Stunned silence filled the room. Patricia was already digging deeper into communication logs. Look at this. There were protests filed by 3 different species delegations during the review. Not just humanity. The Draken, the WIS Unity, and even one of the Vaxian delegations provided evidence of irregular environmental patterns. The 12-hour rest period passed in a blur of preparation and rising tension. Earth's media had exploded with coverage of the competition, and Helen's face was everywhere on every news channel. The simple farmer had become a global icon representing humanity's determination and skill against impossible odds. Helen handled the attention with characteristic calm, but Marcus noticed the toll it was taking on her. She had never asked for fame and never wanted to be a symbol. She just wanted to go home to her farm and her normal life. Round 4 began with only 10 competitors remaining from the original 200. The challenge was announced as adaptive targeting. Targets would appear at variable distances and sizes, but with an additional twist that changed everything. Each target would react to the shooter's aim and move erratically the moment targeting systems locked onto it. It was designed to challenge species with advanced biological targeting systems and force them to adapt to unpredictable target behavior. For someone like Quart 7 with his crystalline, computational abilities, it would require abandoning his primary advantage and relying on pure instinct. For Helen, it was just another day hunting sky hunters back home. Marcus watched as the first competitors attempted the challenge and many struggled badly. Their targeting systems locked on. The targets detected the lock and began evasive maneuvers. Then shots went wild, missing completely. Scores were universally lower than previous rounds. Quart 7 surprised everyone by scoring 68. He had adapted his approach using his targeting systems for range finding, but relying on pure prediction for actual shot timing. It was impressive adaptation, and the Vaxian received respectful applause from the crowd. Scales like Knight the Draken warrior scored 71. Her species' predatory instincts served her well, and she treated the challenge as a hunt rather than a technical exercise. When Helen's turn came, Marcus noticed something immediately different. She had modified her rifle in an unusual way. "Is that allowed?" he asked Patricia. Patricia observed carefully. She removed the electronic targeting scope and replaced it with iron sights, old-fashioned mechanical sights with no electronic components at all. Why would she do that? Because if the targets are reacting to targeting locks and she's not using targeting systems, then they won't react to her at all. She's eliminated the problem entirely. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Helen had identified the core challenge and removed it by eliminating the technology the test was designed to counter. She took position at the firing line and Marcus pulled up the monitoring data. As expected, the environmental manipulation began immediately, but something was different this time. The manipulation was less aggressive than before, still present but noticeably reduced from round 3. "They're being careful," Patricia said. after getting caught once they can't risk being too obvious with their cheating. Helen fired her first shot and achieved a perfect center hit. The target had remained completely stationary exactly as expected when no targeting lock was detected by the system. Shots 2 through 5 followed the same pattern. Helen was shooting the way she had learned on New Montana with just eyes, instinct, and practice. No technology to give her position away to the reactive targets. By shot 6, the arena had caught on to her strategy. Excited chatter filled the observation areas in dozens of languages. The farm woman had once again found an elegant solution to a complex challenge that confounded other competitors. But shot 7 changed everything in an instant. Helen fired and the target moved randomly, not in response to a targeting lock but just randomly. She had missed her center hit by 2 rings. What happened? Marcus demanded while checking the data feeds. Chris monitoring from the observation deck came through on the communication channel. They changed the parameters mid-round. The targets are now moving randomly, not just in response to targeting locks. They're trying to force her to use targeting systems so the targets will react. Helen adjusted immediately to the new conditions. Instead of firing quickly, she began observing the target's movement patterns carefully before taking her shots. It slowed her rate of fire considerably, but her accuracy improved as she learned the patterns. Shot 8 resulted in a center hit. Shot 9 landed 1 ring from center. Shot 10 hit dead center. Her final score was 78, which was the highest score of the entire round. As Helen returned to the observation area, she was mobbed by media drones and eager journalists. But this time she didn't deflect the questions or avoid the attention. "Yes, I removed my targeting systems," she confirmed calmly. "I learned to shoot without electronic assistance, so that's how I'm most comfortable." When the challenge was designed to counter targeting systems, it seemed logical to just remove them entirely. "Do you believe you can actually win the championship?" a journalist asked. Helen paused and considered the question seriously. "I believe I can shoot as well as anyone here. Whether that's enough to win, we'll find out soon enough. What would winning mean to you personally?" "Honestly?" Helen's expression softened. "It would mean I could go home to my farm. Win or lose, after this is done, I'm heading back to New Montana. But if winning helps humanity's standing in the galaxy and helps my neighbors and the billions of people on Earth and the colonies, then I'll do everything I can to make that happen." The honesty of her answer seemed to catch the journalists off guard. No false bravado and no fake humility, just straightforward truth. The range master's announcement cut through the chatter. Round 4 is complete. The following 6 competitors will advance to the finals. Scales like Knight of the Draken Sovereignty, Quartz 7 of the Vax Collective, Crystal Song of the Yis Unity, Flint Edge of the Krell Imperium, Helen Carter of the Terran Systems, and Sonic Wave of the Harmonious Assembly. The crowd erupted in celebration. Helen had made the finals as one of only 6 shooters remaining. She had earned her place through skill, determination, and remarkable adaptability under pressure. But as the cheering died down the range, Master made another announcement that changed everything. The finals will consist of 2 rounds. Round 5 will be a standard precision challenge. Round 6, the championship round, will be determined by the reigning champion. As per tradition, Quartz 7 will design the final challenge. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The Vaxian champion would design the final test. After Helen had defeated him in round 2 and outscored him in round 4, would he create something impossible specifically to prevent her from winning? He found Helen in the corridor outside the observation area alone, for once, as media drones were temporarily restricted during competitor transition periods. "Quartz 7 gets to design the final challenge," Marcus said with concern. "That could be a serious problem for you." Helen shrugged casually. "Maybe it will be, or maybe he'll design something fair. He showed genuine respect after I beat him in round 2. Could be he's more interested in finding the best shooter than preventing a human from winning out of spite." "You're being very optimistic about someone who publicly challenged you." "I'm being practical," Helen corrected. "Getting worried about things I can't control is wasted energy that affects my shooting. Better to focus on performing well in round 5 then deal with whatever comes in round 6 when it happens." She was right, of course, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the final challenge would be something extraordinary designed to push competitors beyond their absolute limits. Patricia appeared with her tablet in hand and a grim expression on her face. "We have a situation developing. The Kreth Union has filed a formal protest with the Galactic Marksman Guild. They're claiming Helen's removal of targeting systems violated Competition equipment standards, that's completely ridiculous, Marcus snapped. Competitors are allowed to configure their equipment as they see fit as long as it meets basic safety requirements. They're arguing that removing standard components constitutes modification that provides unfair advantage. It's a weak argument legally, but they're pushing it hard through political channels. Helen's jaw tightened visibly. When will they rule on the protest? Before round 5 begins in about 6 hours. If they uphold the protest, you would be disqualified from the competition entirely. For the first time since the competition began, Marcus saw genuine anger flash across Helen's face. Not fear or worry, but cold fury at the injustice being perpetrated. Then I guess we wait for their decision. But if they disqualify me for shooting the way I've shot my entire life, for using the most basic equipment possible, then this competition was never about finding the best shooter. It was always about keeping certain people in power and certain species in subordinate positions. She walked away down the corridor, leaving Marcus and Patricia standing there. She's not wrong about any of that, Patricia said quietly. This has become much bigger than a shooting competition. It's really about humanity's place in the galactic order, and there are very powerful forces that want to keep us exactly where we are as junior partners with no real voice. So what do we do now? We document absolutely everything. Every manipulation, every protest, every attempt to rig the outcome. If they succeed in keeping Helen from winning fairly, we make sure the entire galaxy knows exactly what happened and who was responsible. The ruling on the Kreth Union protest came 4 hours before round 5 was scheduled to begin. Competition officials rejected the protest completely and stated that removal of electronic components to rely on basic mechanical sighting systems was within equipment modification rules and provided no unfair advantage whatsoever. The Kreth Union delegation walked out of the arena in protest. 3 other species delegations followed them, claiming the competition had become biased toward less technologically advanced species. Helen's response to the news was characteristically brief and to the point. Good. Now we can get back to actual shooting. Round 5 began with 6 competitors and a simple challenge that stripped away all complications. Pure precision shooting at varying distances from 1,000 to 10,000 meters. No environmental manipulation, no reactive targets, and no tricks. Just shooter and target in the most fundamental test of marksmanship possible. Scales like Knight shot first and scored 79. Her Draken physiology and predatory instinct served her well. Crystal Song of the Yes Unity scored 81. Flint Edge of the Krell Imperium scored 76, which was solid but unremarkable. Sonic Wave of the Harmonious Assembly struggled with visual targeting and scored only 68. Quartz 7 approached the firing line with visible determination. His crystalline form glowed with steady blue light, and he moved through his shots with mechanical precision that was beautiful to watch. His final score was 83. The crowd applauded respectfully. Quartz 7 had proven why he had been champion for 4 consecutive cycles. Despite Helen's earlier victory over him, he remained a formidable competitor who deserved respect. Helen stepped to the firing line and the arena fell completely silent. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The woman who had captured the galaxy's imagination, the simple farmer who had challenged the established order, had one final chance to prove herself before the championship round. Marcus watched the environmental monitors closely. For the first time in the entire competition, they showed completely neutral readings. No manipulation and no suspicious spikes. Whoever had been interfering had apparently given up or been blocked from system access. Helen fired her first shot and it hit dead center at 1,000 meters. Second shot was a center hit at 2,000 meters. Third shot hit center at 3,000 meters. She moved through the round like clockwork with each shot perfectly placed. Marcus realized he was watching mastery in its purest form. Not flashy and not dramatic, just absolute competence executed with calm precision. Shot after shot landed dead center without variation. When the final score appeared, the arena erupted in celebration. 94 points. Just 2 points from absolute perfection, and the highest score recorded in any round of the entire competition. Helen had earned her place in the championship round beyond any possible doubt or protest. As competitors gathered for the announcement of the final challenge, Marcus noticed the changed atmosphere. The alien competitors no longer looked at Helen with hostility or suspicion. Instead, there was genuine respect and even admiration. She had proven herself against every challenge, overcome every manipulation and maintained grace under pressure. that impressed even species with thousands of years more experience. Quartz. 7 stepped forward to announce the final challenge. His crystalline form glowed with steady, peaceful blue light. As reigning champion, I have the honor of designing the championship challenge. I considered creating something that would test the limits of technology, something that would favor my species' natural advantages. But I have learned something important during this competition. He turned to look directly at Helen. True marksmanship is not about biological advantages or advanced technology. It is about skill, dedication, and the courage to perform under extreme pressure. Helen Carter has taught me this lesson. So the final challenge will be this: a single shot at maximum range of 15,000 meters under completely neutral conditions. No environmental manipulation, no reactive targets, and no tricks of any kind. Just the shooter, the rifle, and the target. The purest test of marksmanship possible. The arena erupted in applause. Court 7 had designed a challenge that removed all variables except pure skill. It was elegant, it was fair, and it would determine the champion based solely on ability. Each finalist will take one shot, Court 7 continued. Closest to center wins. In the event of a tie, we will shoot again until a champion emerges. The finals would begin in exactly 1 hour. Marcus found Helen in the preparation area sitting alone with her rifle. She was cleaning it with the same methodical care she had shown throughout the entire competition. "One shot," Marcus said while sitting beside her. "Everything comes down to a single shot." "Same as always," Helen replied calmly. "Every shot is the only shot when you're taking it. This is just more official with more people watching." "Are you nervous at all?" "Terrified," Helen admitted, and Marcus was surprised by her honesty. "Not of losing the competition. I'm terrified of what winning means. I'll never be able to go back to the simple life I had before. Win or lose, everything has changed forever. But at least if I win, maybe all this attention and all this disruption to my life will have been worth something meaningful." "You've already proven yourself to everyone," Marcus said sincerely. "Maybe so, but proving it and making it official are two different things." Helen set down her cleaning cloth and looked at Marcus directly. "Thank you for watching out for me, for helping me prepare, and for treating me like a person instead of just a symbol. I know this was never really about me personally. It's about humanity's place in the galaxy, but it's been nice having people who cared about me as Helen, and not just as a representative." The call came for competitors to assemble at the firing line. The championship round was beginning. All 6 finalists stood at the firing line, each at their designated lane. 15,000 meters downrange, a single target waited. The arena displays showed magnified views, making the distant target visible to spectators. Sonic Wave shot first and her bolt went wide, missing the target entirely. She departed the firing line with grace. Flint Edge shot second and landed 3 rings from center. Scales Like Knight's shot landed 2 rings from center. Crystal Song's shot hit 1 ring from center and she took the lead. Court 7 stepped to the line, the former champion preparing for what might be his final competitive shot. He stood motionless for nearly a full minute, calculating and preparing. He fired, center hit, perfect and flawless. The crowd's roar was deafening. Court 7 had proven why he had dominated for so long. Under completely neutral conditions with no tricks, he had achieved absolute perfection. Now only Helen remained. She approached the firing line and the arena fell silent. Billions watched across the galaxy, waiting to see if the simple farmer could match the champion's perfection. Helen took her position with rifle ready. She didn't rush and didn't show nerves. She simply stood there, breathing steadily and reading conditions that only she could perceive with her experienced eyes. Marcus held his breath. Patricia had her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Even the other competitors watched with evident tension. Helen fired. The plasma bolt arced across 15,000 meters of space, traveling for what felt like an eternity. Trajectory displays tracked its path, showing minute corrections for air resistance, gravity, and temperature variations. The bolt struck the target. For a moment, the displays couldn't determine the exact impact point, because the shot was so close to center that the sensors needed additional analysis time. Then the result appeared with mathematical precision. Center hit, perfect. But the analysis continued, showing something unprecedented. Helen's shot had landed within the same scoring zone as Court 7's, but closer to the absolute center, by a margin of less than 2 millimeters. Helen Carter had won. The arena exploded with sound. Not just cheering, but genuine jubilation from species across the entire galaxy. They had witnessed something extraordinary. A competitor who had overcome every obstacle, every manipulation, and every challenge to emerge victorious through nothing but pure skill and determination. Court 7 approached Helen with his crystalline form glowing warm gold light. He performed the Vaxian gesture of deep respect, then extended one appendage in the human gesture of congratulation. "You are champion," he said simply. "Fairly won and justly earned. It has been my honor to compete against you." "The honor is mine," Helen replied while shaking his appendage. "You're an incredible shooter. You made me work for every single point." "As it should be in true competition," Court 7 said. The range master made the official announcement. By unanimous decision of the competition judges, the new galactic shooting champion is Helen Carter of the Terran Systems. She has earned the title through exceptional skill, remarkable adaptability, and grace under extreme pressure. Further, in accordance with competition tradition and the wager made during Round 2, humanity will be recommended for full inclusion in the Galactic Marksman Guild with complete voting privileges. The implications were staggering for humanity's future. Helen's victory had just changed humanity's standing in the entire galactic community. Not through military might or political maneuvering, but through the simple, pure demonstration of skill.